on apprenticeships, and this is to celebrate this week, which is we're celebrating apprenticeships. Today we have a really exciting lineup of speakers. So I'm going to be chairing the session. My name is Jose Hernandez. I am the Continuous Professional Development Manager at the Manufacturing Skills Academy at the National Manufacturing Institute of Scotland. But today we're joined by three colleagues. First of all, we have Colin Score, who's UK Head of Engineering Early Careers at Thales. And Colin has a really exciting professional background and experience. Colin joined Thales in 2009 as a manufacturing technician through their apprenticeships program. After 4 years of training, he went to complete a degree in mechanical and electronic systems, which allowed him to join the team as a mechanical in a mechanical engineering role. And soon after, he became an engineering manager for Thales. Today, Colin holds the role of STEM coordinator for Thales, covering all of Scotland, and he's keen to develop, inspire, and motivate future generations through STEM and mentoring. So, again, exemplifying the importance of apprenticeships, the power that something like this could give to future talent. And just to finish up with Colin, he's responsible for all engineers in the UK that are currently going to the graduate and apprenticeships program for Thales, so a big responsibility. And we also have a joint presentation from Robert Bruce, and apologies, we couldn't get Robert's picture to work, so apologies, Robert. And we also have her colleague Eleanor Wallace. Both of them work for Ingenuity. Robert is a sector development specialist, and Ellie is technical specialist and project manager. And both of them have over 50 years of combined experience in skills, in education and skills. They both have worked with a wide range of Scottish and UK-based education and skills stakeholders, and they are currently working on a number of projects to shape and define the future national occupational standards and related occupational competence qualifications and apprenticeship framework. So the presentation is geared towards showing a particular project that they're currently working on, which on behalf of Skills Development Scotland. Before we continue with their presentations, I will take you through some housekeeping, and I will introduce the National Manufacturing to Scotland, and I will do a quick shout out to our founders. But from a housekeeping perspective, we're going to be recording this webinar, and it will be made available at a later stage in YouTube. So if you want to revise anything, just please feel free to access it through our YouTube channel. We are turning off your microphones and webcams to avoid background noise. But we want the conversation to happen. So if you have any questions about anything that we're covering, please feel free to use the chat section to write your questions. We'll have some time at the end of the presentation to go through your questions. We have a hashtag at NMIS Insights if you want to ask any questions through Twitter, and we also have the at NMIS-group. There'll be a survey towards the end of the towards the end of this webinar, because we're keen to improve the delivery of our events, and if you have any feedback, then we will appreciate it. But there will also be a call for action from our colleagues at Ingenuity, and I will let them speak in a bit more detail, but we'll also be asking you guys to follow up on some of their feedback. So I'll start with an introduction to the National Manufacturing Institute of Scotland. Most of you probably already know who we are, but for those of you who don't, we're a Scottish government-led initiative, and it comprises a group of industry-led manufacturing research and development facilities. We want to make Scotland a global leader in advanced manufacturing, and we think we can achieve this by bringing together the good work that is conducted across the nation, across educational institutions, across our industry partners, but also thanks to the public support sector organizations. We bring this together, we'll be able to transform the skills, help companies become more productive, and drive innovation, ultimately making Scotland a more successful economic power. In terms of what specifically we're trying to achieve through NMIS, we want to help organizations become more productive by reducing barriers to innovation. I work for the Manufacturing Skills Academy, which is one of the business units within NMIS, and from our perspective, we're one of the legs in the stool. You might have technology, you might have a vision, but if you don't have the skills to successfully implement the technologies, then you might struggle to achieve your business objective. So we see skills as a key part of this. And through this, we want to stimulate investment and increase manufacturing competitiveness. And a big part of this as well is to be able to de-risk that investment, just to make sure that you have the knowledge to take advantage of the opportunities. And again, skills has a big part to play. We want to support catalyzation of job creation and strengthen and building supply chains. And we want to make manufacturing an attractive industry. So we want to inspire and attract talent and make sure that they have the necessary skills to help business succeed. And we're here to work with manufacturing organizations, and we do talk about manufacturing in the widest sense. So any shape, any size of organization, any sector, we want to really develop long-lasting collaborative relationships. So if you're interested to find out more about what we do, please get in touch. In terms of how NMIS came about, as I mentioned, it's a government-led initiative. So the idea is that NMIS will be a national asset. We're a Pan-Scottish initiative, and we're here to serve the entire region. And this picture highlights the key stakeholders that are involved within NMIS. So Scottish Government, Scottish Enterprise, Highlands and Islands Enterprise, the High Value Manufacturing Catapult, organizations like SDS, Scottish Funding Council, Renfrewshire Council, and South of Scotland Enterprise. And we do a specific shout out here to the University of Strathclyde, because I am a Strathclyde University employee, and most of the people working for NMIS will be Strathclyde University employees. We have been given the remit by the Scottish Government to deliver this initiative. However, as I mentioned, we're keen to work across our network. So we are, although we're operated by Strathclyde, we are a little bit independent in terms of the way that we want to collaborate with others. In terms of how we are shaped and how we're structured, well, we bring together a number of core NMIS capabilities, specialist technology centers, and an active network of partners. So this is what we call the NMIS group, and I think this is just a high-level visualization of how this works. So we have the National Manufacturing Institute of Scotland, which is composed of a number of core elements. So the picture that I have behind me is our HQ building, which will be open in Renfrewshire area, just near the airport. And within this building, there will be a digital factory that will house state-of-the-art equipment, collaboration hub, and opportunity again for that collaboration to happen. Will be a lot of space for support sector organizations, industry to come together and work with us. And within this building, we also have dedicated space to deliver skills training. So the Manufacturing Skills Academy will have a specific classrooms, and because we'll have access to the equipment within the digital factory and to the collaboration areas, we'll create a really exciting opportunities. In addition to these core elements, we also have two specialist centers. These are well-established research entities, the Advanced Forming Research Center and the Lightweight Manufacturing Center. So they are part of the NMIS group, and they fall within the governance. But again, just to mention that the HQ building is going to be important because it's going to give the opportunity for organizations to see a lot of this technology and a lot of this innovation happen. But we are much bigger than this building, and it's very important for us to be able to achieve our objectives of being a national asset to deliver at a wider regional level. So please get in touch if you want to find out more. We're more than happy to come and see you and visit you and have conversations with you. And before I start to hand over to my colleagues, I just want to do a big shout out to our funders. This webinar is sponsored by our Advancing Manufacturing Challenge funding partners through a specific project which is aimed at delivering online training on digital manufacturing and leadership. This is one of the services that our industrial clients can currently take advantage of. We have a range of training programs, and we have just an example there, a list of interactivities that you guys can join just now, free of charge for manufacturing SMEs. The objective is to provide employers with inspiration and with regards to new technologies. We want to help you become more digitally aware and be better prepared for the challenges of the future. And we have a range of training programs to support you and your workforce through that journey. And again, I'm not going to spend much time here. We have put a link there if you guys want to you can self-register and immediately get access to 100% online, self-directed online content in a range of areas. But this week and today is all about apprenticeships. So as we know, apprenticeships are well known and they are perceived as essential to the nation's economic revival. Is the injection of talent that they bring into organization, and they are successful mechanisms because they allow individuals to work, learn, and earn. And this learning process will lead to accredited qualifications, allowing individuals to really grow within organizations, and very importantly, to provide employers with the necessary skills that they need to succeed. Another important element of this is the a byproduct of the modern apprenticeship process, which encourages employees to value and develop a diverse talent pool. And we recognize the importance of diversity and inclusion, and therefore this is another mechanism to help you potentially achieve those objectives. But enough about the introduction. We're really excited about what our presenters have to say, and I am going to hand over now to the first presenter. Colin, are you okay to take over?
Yes, absolutely, no problem, Jose.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, good morning, everyone. And yeah, my name is Colin Score. I work for Thales UK, and I'm based at the Glasgow office. Today, I plan to kind of go just a little bit of an overview of myself, sort of the history I've had being an ex-apprentice, the support that I've then provided to the different types of apprenticeships that we've had throughout the time here in Thales and what we have to offer, and then to talk to you a little about some of the benefits that we find from having apprentices as part of our business. So yeah, 13 years ago to the week, it would be when I was at school. I was in 5th year at school, and as part of National Science and Apprentice Week, I visited the Thales site here in Glasgow, and yeah, after that I asked about apprenticeships and applied, and in the August I started as a manufacturing technician apprentice. So that was a modern apprenticeship, and it was a 4-year long one. We went to the East Kilbride Group Training Association, and we went and spent time there getting sort of the basics of our apprenticeship skills, or hands-on technical skills, as well as completing an NC qualification. And then going into years 2 and 3 of the apprenticeship scheme, we returned back to being in Thales full time, but we also got sent day release to complete an HNC at college as well. So we've done that in our chosen field, and at the same time we've got a lot of on-the-job learning and experience, and that for me was one of the huge benefits, was that some of the things that I was learning in college, things that I was learning academically, I was then also getting to put those skills to use, or even some of the theoretical parts, I was getting to put that down into use as well on there. So yeah, I done that, but I started off as an apprentice in there, and in the final year of my apprenticeship, sort of graduate apprenticeships or degree apprenticeships were starting to come around as well. They were starting to become a thing, and my manager at the time approached me and asked if I'd like to go and complete a degree part-time. So I'd done that. I completed a degree in mechanical electronic systems engineering, so done that 1 day a week on day release while still working with Thales. So that was sort of the start of me going from a modern apprentice, then moving into being what would be known today as a graduate apprentice, and starting to build up to that. So for me, it was showing how the 2 different types of apprenticeships and could work together, and how you could evolve your career through the different stages in a sort of sequential manner and give you that career development. So went through and done my degree for 4 years, which was a great experience. It was difficult, I won't lie. I suppose at that point when you're working, you're doing 12-hour days at university, and then you're working a full-time job as well the rest of the week. It did take up a lot of your time, but absolutely worth it. It was great, and I think that was where, for Thales as a business, they definitely got a huge benefit there, because I moved into a different role. I became a mechanical design engineer. I was only a junior engineer at that time, working on the projects, but a lot of what I was really learning day to day, or week by week, at university, I was really able to then apply that into my day job, and I accelerated my sort of progress in the business. I accelerated my knowledge and learning, and just my capability within the business became far more capable much quicker than what you would have done sort of as a graduate coming straight into the business. So moved on from that, and then as soon as I completed my degree in 2016, I started to work with Thales and with a whole sort of cohort of other businesses as well, where we started to look at, well, what would the future look like for our degree level or graduate level apprentices? How does that work? And we worked closely with Strathclyde University to develop the current graduate apprenticeship programme that's running there. And that's been emulated across loads of different education providers as well. But we spent a lot of time building that up, working with, so not only was it Thales, there was BAE Systems, there was Spirit Aerosystems, Castle Precision Engineering, Leonardo. There were a lot of companies that in many walks of life are competitors to each other, but we all got together to understand, well, what was the best thing for our businesses, for the young people we were trying to develop, and how could we pull that together. And for me, that was a great experience, because I was able to relay back sort of first-hand knowledge and experience of what the interaction was like for me when I completed my degree in a similar fashion. What worked well, what didn't work so well, what did we need from the educational providers to make sure that the business got the best benefit out of it. So we went through and done that, and last year we had our first full cohort completing the graduate apprenticeships, which was a great success for us. And just last year I moved into a role now as the Head of Engineering Early Careers, so I look after all of our early careers across all of Thales UK. So that looks after just about 300 graduates and apprentices across the UK that we cover for that. And this year alone, we're bringing in 140 directly into engineering across all walks of life. So not just focusing on my bias towards engineering, being an engineer, but looking at the other walks of life as well, where you have the business side of the business, the HR side of Thales, and many other aspects. We've got apprenticeships across all of our 10 job families that we have here within Thales, and across that we have over just about 600 or 700 early careers individuals sitting in within the business across all of those different areas. So that could be from business management to programme planning and through to being an engineer and working on those sides of things as well. We cover a lot of different levels of apprenticeships, so that's probably one of the big benefits for us that we're starting to see. So we do have foundation apprenticeships, so those people in 5th or 6th year at school that are starting to pick up a foundation apprenticeship as one of their courses and classes, and we're bringing them into the business. We're integrating that as well as we can and giving them access and opportunities into Thales at a far earlier stage, where they're maybe not so interested in going and doing just physics at school or design for manufacture, whatever it may be. We're giving them that opportunity to complete a qualification, but also get some industry experience and exposure to what life is like within Thales as a business. We then also get the benefit from that. I can't deny that. Then we get some really good applicants and candidates that come through to us for modern apprenticeships or even degree level apprenticeships, and as part of those that have completed that foundation apprenticeship, we'll allow them to fast track through our recruitment process and come straight into assessment centre. So it's a really key point for us is to get those sort of early engagements in, and that builds on our STEM work that we do as well. So you can see how it all sort of ties in. And then we've got our modern apprentices, and that's something that we're increasing the number that we take on sort of year on year, and they're across all of the UK, but here in Glasgow, we take on average about 8 per year into our industry side of the business for the modern apprentices, and then a couple per year, maybe 2 or 3 per year into the business side of things. For engineering, then that's when we start to go down the graduate apprenticeship route. So we start to look at what do we need from a graduate apprentice. Those are the sort of school leavers that are ready to leave, could go straight to university, but have chosen the pathway of taking a graduate apprenticeship as well, which is great. For us, we're seeing a huge benefit there. And bringing in those people at those mixed levels, because they all come in the same cohort, they all work together, they come together as a team, but they're all learning different qualifications at different levels. And with the flexibility around about the funding and the support that's available, we're then able to see how someone who maybe started as a foundation apprentice could then do a modern apprenticeship and then complete a graduate apprenticeship as well. So they're following that full pathway through, which just means it doesn't matter what career choice you make at the start, there's still that opportunity for people to learn and develop all through apprenticeships and to pull down that learning and knowledge, which is great. It's really quite exciting when you see that pathway working its way through. For us, we've then also got our graduate side of things. So all of our graduates that come in and join the business, so they've got a degree, they've already completed that sort of level 6 maybe degree. We then put them onto a programme. It's another 4-year programme, but through that they also complete a level 7 apprenticeship. So we use apprenticeship standards throughout from level 3 all the way through to level 7 apprenticeship standards for everything from foundation through to the sort of level 7 postgraduate apprentices that we use as well. So we're really utilising every aspect of it. some of the big benefits to Talis that we see really is that the apprentices are more loyal. And that's something it's a hot topic just now. Attrition is a massive issue that everyone's facing. Everyone's in the sort of resourcing nightmare of trying to hire people while everyone's leaving. And apprenticeships and apprentices are the ones that seem to be most loyal to our business. They're the ones that feel the biggest sense of purpose. They feel the biggest drive and loyalty towards Talis. They want to stay here. They see the investment that we've put in, but they also see the opportunities to develop and grow. And that really is purely down to the support that we get through using apprenticeship levies and the funding that's available to us through SDS and other bodies as well. So it's a massive thing for us. It really helps us with the, I will call it out, it's the Grayson Army, is what we're calling it just now. So we have, in Glasgow alone, we have a plan to tackle our sort of succession planning and knowledge transfer, where over the next 5 years, for each year, we'll be bringing in 22 young people. So that's across foundation apprenticeships through to ND and PhD students that we will be supporting through. And that's where we're using the apprenticeship framework in a large way to support how we will tackle attrition, but also tackle those people retiring and doing the succession planning. So for us, it's a strategic enabler by using the apprenticeship standards to suit our needs. And another really key thing is we've always found a lot of flexibility with the apprenticeship standards. We've always found that we can change things or work with education providers to adjust them to suit our business. So where we maybe have a niche skill, like building a periscope for a submarine, then we are then able to try and tailor the needs for our business and get that satisfied through the different apprenticeship standards available. So it's really there to work with and to support with and to get the most out of what you can for a business. So yeah, for us, apprenticeships are great. I'm definitely biased because I'm an ex-apprentice, but yeah, we use them in a great way for our business. And if it wasn't for that, the growth that we have seen as a business over probably the last 10 years wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for the apprenticeship programs that we've had running internally. So yeah, I'm more than happy to take any questions. I know everyone's muted, but more than happy if anyone does have anything in the chat to fire them over to me. I'll quite happily answer away, or you can wait till the end and I'll answer them at that point. Or if any of the panel have any questions as well, I'm more than happy to answer.
Excellent. Thanks, Colin. Really appreciate that. That's really interesting, and it's really exciting to hear the insights, the benefits, that the implications of that loyalty to organization. So thanks for sharing that story. This is really exciting. I'm gonna hand over now to Ellie, and if you guys have any questions, please put them in the chat. But thank you very much again, Colin. That was really insightful. Ellie, is it okay if I hand over to you for your part of the presentation?
Yeah, that's fine. Good morning, everybody. I'm just gonna share the presentation. So we are Enginuity, and we have got an interesting project this year in redeveloping engineering apprenticeships as a whole in Scotland to develop a new engineering apprenticeship framework. I've got a short video about Ingenuity and who we are, so I'll just play that first. Hopefully the connection will last. If it doesn't, I'll share it in the chat. So here we go.
Apologies, I think we've lost the sound, but the video's playing okay.
So that's who we are. So our purpose is to work together with employers, educators and policymakers using industry expertise and data science so that engineers are given the opportunity to change their world and ours. We've got a new project this year, which is the development of a new engineering apprenticeship standard and framework, which we've started working on. And the project aims is to basically overhaul the engineering apprenticeships in Scotland at the moment, to mainly look at identifying commonalities and transferability within engineering. So it allows the transferability of skills that a welder is a welder, regardless of what sector that welder may be working in. Somebody working on computer-aided design, it doesn't really matter what they're designing, the skills are the same. So we are trying to look at the commonalities across different skill sector areas and plug the gaps with data science. The current scope in the contract for the framework is on the screen at the moment. It covers from level 5 to level 6. There are a couple of level 7s on there, but we're looking at all different types of engineering, from engineering construction, engineering manufacturing, rail engineering, water, oil and gas, power and land-based engineering. And we are currently in the process of evidence gathering. So we're doing a survey at the moment, which is right down to employee level, asking what do you do? What do you do in your day job? What are the tasks that you need to do in order to be competent in your role and perform well? The survey is live. It was due to finish on the 4th of March, but it's been extended to the 11th of March. We can share the link again for that in the chat. And once we've gathered the information that we need from this survey, we're going to be looking at holding employee workshops to develop these work situations further. And then we'll be agreeing the actual scope of what this framework is going to cover. There will be some things that lie slightly outside and more niche or specialist areas, but they should form a core engineering framework that is transferable across the different sectors that were listed within the contract. We'll then be looking to use technical expert groups to refine those work situations further, and then go into the apprenticeship framework development and qualification development, which will run to December at the end of this year. And so we are looking for input at various stages, either into the employee workshops themselves or into the technical expert groups. I'm now going to hand over to Robert.
Ellie, thanks very much indeed. And what I want to do is just take people through the project stages and give a little bit more background and information that might be helpful to those on the call today. But before I do that, can I just say thanks very much to Colin. What an excellent insight and presentation regarding apprenticeships and his role within TALS in Scotland. But what was excellent about that presentation, it shows the key need for the content that we're trying to create in this new development and apprenticeship standard, and the opportunity to work collaboratively. We heard Colin talking about the collaborative work that was put together in terms of companies, for example, around the graduate apprenticeship scheme in engineering. And equally, this is something that we're passionate about in terms of this particular development around the modern apprenticeship in engineering. Our modern Ingenuity and SEMTA previously have had a long history in terms of apprenticeship development in Scotland, and so we're delighted to be working with Skills Development Scotland in this lead piece of work around the redrafting and the review of the modern apprenticeship in engineering. And we know it's key that everybody needs to be engaged in the process. And Ellie has highlighted in the last slide the organisations and the amount of the broad depth of those that we want to engage in the project. The first stage of that project, as Ellie has said, is evidence gathering. We've created an employee questionnaire, and that questionnaire is designed to identify what we call work situations. That being the roles and the tasks and the duties and responsibilities, for example, that actually engineering employees need to undertake. And we're also now establishing some of the stakeholder support groups that we need to support and help us along that route. In terms of the survey itself, it is live, as Ellie has said. It was due to close today. We've held it open for more than Apprenticeship Week, which makes a lot of sense. And also, actually, we've been doing a little bit of look at the content that's now coming back on that survey. We've got about 215 responses to date as from this morning, so that's excellent. Working across large to small, medium employers, and a significant number of job and functional roles within the engineering sector. So that's really actually really helpful, and we're delighted by that response, but we need more. In terms of this stage, we'll also be running a number of employee workshops. We've scheduled these for the 22nd, 24th and 30th of March. The reason for that is we're going to take the information from the survey, we're going to create a list of work situations that are emerging from that survey, and we're going to share these at these workshops with employees, and we're going to take forward what we call a refinement of the work situations. So we're at that early part of the process. We're in that early sort of dialogue around actually what that content might be. And I've provided here some examples of the work situations so that perhaps the audience today can have a look at what we're asking for in our survey. So for example, this one is just a simple title, designing software, and then a brief description of what that says. The second one here, as an example, is around using and interpreting engineering data and documentation. And the third is around solving engineering problems. And this is the type of work situation we're asking people to document in terms of the survey. And it's really important, actually, that we get as many and diverse work situations as we can, so that we can begin to do that research and that sort of like correlation around what we think are common engineering skills. We've had lots of examples, for example, coming through on the survey around actually what we see as actually engineering maintenance roles, engineering actually repair and fault finding roles, replacement of components, for example, are beginning to emerge quite strongly in terms of that survey. And I think everybody would agree as an engineer that actually, for example, if you're going to repair or replace a component, it doesn't matter what engineering kind of environment you're in, that the common skill is the same. It's similar, and we're beginning to see that emerge. This is our survey link. Elliot, I think we're going to put that in the chat, as it were. I'm not sure we need to click into that survey at the moment. I think actually it will take people through a series of questions, and then it will ask you to do a text box fill in terms of the work situations, and we'd really encourage people to participate in that survey. In terms of the next stage of the project, we'll develop work situations based on evidence from the survey and employee workshop, as I've said. The work situations will have an objective, they will have a goal, they will have a title, but they'll also then be populated with what we call performance requirements and knowledge and understanding. So very much like a national occupational standard, if you've seen it, and quite similar. In terms of the work situations, once we have a number of work situations created that will cover the core elements of engineering, we're going to use our data science capacity at Ingenuity to validate and do some gap analysis. Because we know that our survey and our employee work will not necessarily bring all of the engineering disciplines to the fore. So we'll need to do some gap analysis around that. We are going to use a number of databases to help us do that. We're going to use ONET, for example, ESCO, national occupational standards, and we're also going to do some kind of validation with skills vacancies, because what we want to ensure is that the kind of skills that are being highlighted by employers in skills vacancies are also aligning to the work situations that are emerging both from the survey and from the workshop feedback that we're getting. We'll do some meta skills profiling for engineering equally as part of this project, because that's significantly important, because we know actually we will need these meta skills for the transferability aspects of the programme of work. And we know how meta skills are becoming exceedingly important for young people and for anyone working on this programme of work to actually make progressional steps. And also we'll agree an occupational scope and coverage at the end of this project stage also in terms of the standard and framework. And as Ellie said earlier, there will be some perhaps specialist knowledge and understanding that may be out of scope. And what we mean by that is, for example, if we look at downstream gas, for example, they have specific assessments that are linked to gas safety. That might be a challenge to incorporate, for example, in this new development. So that's just one example. In terms of project stage 2, we're looking at creating an employer technical expert group. We would hope to have around 15 employers, to 20 employers in that group if we can. The role of the employers for that group will be to review and validate the work situations also, because it's really important actually that employers are comfortable and confident about the content of the work situations that will underpin the standard and the framework. They will also help us finalise the work situations, and they will also help us actually identify any remaining gaps in terms of the sector. From the work situations, we'll agree a draft apprenticeship framework and standard, and then what we'll seek to do is do a wider consultation with stakeholder groups around that content to make sure that fully aligns and fully underpins the skills that the sector and the industry need, not just now and not just actually stepping forward in the medium term, but also in the longer term in the future. We'll also actually start to recruit and manage 2 other groups. So we'll have a qualifications design team, and we'll also have a provider apprenticeship delivery group. Both of these will help us actually, again, consolidate the work situations and our findings. The qualifications design group will help us create a new set. We'll turn these work situations into what we will call qualification units, and our provider network and delivery group will also help us actually just consolidate the content of the work situations, ensuring actually there are no challenges around the delivery for the delivery network equally. Based on that, we will produce a new qualification structure at Enginuity. We hope that will probably contain some pathways for the various sectors around the engineering sector and industry. And once we've got these new qualification structures in place and we've confirmed them, we'll ask our colleagues, for example, SQA as a regulator, to approve that new structure. And the standard and framework will also go to the the apprenticeship approvals group for actually verification and actually approval. Post that, we'll work with awarding bodies to develop new qualifications, and we know there are a number of awarding bodies we will also be asking to join our what I would call our qualifications design group, for we expect an invitation, for example, to go out to the Scottish Qualifications Authority, we equally EAL, and any other awarding organisation, for example, who will have an interest in working with us to develop these new qualifications. We hope that these new qualifications should be available towards the end of March 2023. That's our timeline. So what are we asking for those on the call today, and what are we asking you to do in terms to take the messages out to a wider audience? We all see and understand that we need to ensure that we've got the widest possible reach to determine the content for all the work situations. If you go back to the slide that Ellie, for example, talked about in terms of what's in scope, there is a significant and wide-ranging depth of scope of engineering discipline and provision in school. So we need to get the widest possible range because we need to be able to identify the common engineering tasks and skills and the competencies that underpin these activities. And we also need to find out more about the specialist sector knowledge or skills that sit within each of the kind of scoped areas. We also are putting a call out today for employer and employee engagement. So for all of those on the call today, it'd be really good for employers. It would be really great if you can share the survey with your employees. We'd also ask that employers actually encourage and allow their employees to participate with us in the workshops that we've got planned in March. And we'd really like actually to identify potential employers for us to join the technical expert groups, and equally for employers if they're on the call to register in their interest in the group. It's critical for us that they support this initiative and that we understand their skills need stepping forward. We'd ask apprenticeship providers on the call to register their interest in the PAG group, the provider apprenticeship group, and we'd also ask all of those on the call today to participate in the wider consultation. Rosie, I'm going to stop there, and perhaps there's a few questions actually that might start to come in from those on the call today, and we're happy to take them alongside things. Any questions, of course, for Colin who, in terms of his earlier presentation.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Robert and Ellie. That was a really interesting presentation, and it's very important work that you guys are doing. You know, this new structure and framework. This is the only way that we can guarantee that, you know, as things change and things evolve, that the qualification structure will remain relevant for organizations into the future, you know, creating the skills that they really need. And it's great to see as well that things like meta skills profiling are being incorporated, because I think you're right, that's a fundamental asset for transferability in skills for future workforce employees. So we'd like to open the session now for any questions, and please feel free to write them down on if you guys want to unmute, then we can do that as well. So we have a question there from Tommy Breslin asking if we can share the slides, and I think we'll be happy to do that, absolutely. So we'll send a copy of the slides to everybody that is in the call following this, and we'll also make sure that we'll share the relevant survey across our network. Robert, so we'll speak to our own team internally to do that. There's a few more questions coming through. I do have a question for Colin. Colin, you have experienced the end-to-end process of the placement life cycle. From an industrial perspective, you know, from a company perspective, what would you suggest to somebody that is potentially not fully involved in apprenticeships, and what will be the first step for them to take? Or can you maybe reflect on your experience in terms of the process that you have had to go through?
Yeah, I think are you talking from a business perspective or from an apprentice, from a young person's perspective?
But from a business perspective, first of all.
Yeah. So from the business perspective, I think it would be to reach out to ask SDS or whoever it may be, a local college, about apprenticeships and what they offer. So personally speaking, I've got a business with friends separately. Now, obviously, I've got the advantage of having the knowledge that I do, but we still reached out to our local college to then set up to get our apprentice started and working for that part of the business. We spoke to them about what we needed. They actually pointed us in a completely different direction and said, you should try this college, it's a better provider. This apprenticeship framework suits you better and suits your needs a lot more. So I think the first step is understanding what the role you want to do. What are the skills that you're trying to develop and grow within your business? Is it that it's some form of succession planning? So you've got a person there already that you want to replace, and you're looking at how you want to do that? Or is it that you're moving your business in a new direction, you're increasing headcount, whatever it may be, and try to understand what it is you want to get from the apprenticeship as much as, you know, what it can offer to you, and then see how you can get the right framework to suit you. So for me, it would be understanding your own need and what it is you want to do with it and what you're aiming to get out of it, and then reach out and have that conversation to understand what apprenticeship standard and framework could work best for you.
No, that's perfect, and I suppose that makes perfect sense. And I think again, there's many organizations, and we'll be happy to have conversations with companies to help them understand, what is the journey, we want to get from A to B. Well, we need to define that vision before we can start to define how to do it and whether this is the right mechanism to do that. But no, that's a great insight. And from an apprentice perspective, if I was interested in apprenticeships, but I wasn't sure which area. I mean, you mentioned there was a lot of flexibility within the Thales process. But what would be a recommendation to somebody that's considering this route?
Yeah, I think that depending on what stage of your career at, or what age you are, and where you are through maybe your educational part with school, a foundation apprenticeship is a great place to start. Speaking to your careers advisor about that. If you're a little bit more serious about it, then look on the apprenticeship website for Scotland and having a look on there to see what's available. And for me, the big thing would be, if you're not too sure, try things out, ask for some work experience in certain places. Don't be scared to reach out and do that. If you were an apprentice or someone looking to take on an apprenticeship, have that little bit in you to go and look out and actively seek some opportunities to see what suits you and what would be best. And nothing's ever a mistake on those kind of things. It would be another point. Every apprenticeship you complete gives you a set of skills that could be transferable or used in another way. So even if you do something you don't overly enjoy, we've had that. We've had people in here come into engineering, and then after they've completed their degree in engineering, they've moved into program management or into the business side of things. So nothing's a waste of time. Everything's a good opportunity to learn from and to grow from. Absolutely. Perfect. Thank you very much. Robert, I have a question here coming from one of the participants. Is asking about, how should employers in new sectors such as space or hydrogen ensure their needs are incorporated? So are you looking at other sectors, the wider sense for your analysis?
Yeah, we are indeed, Jose. One of the things that we are aware of, for example, is the All Energy group that are working on, for example, content around hydrogen, also content around carbon capture. We've been given some information from that group, which has been really helpful. So that will help us actually determine whether there's a need for work situations to be created in that particular areas of these new technology areas of work. Equally, actually, what most of the work situations we'll be looking to create will be competency based, but there may be an opportunity also to create what I would call knowledge based units. These knowledge bases might be stuff around actually the space sector, maybe stuff around actually hydrogen, carbon capture. This is particularly new technology, so perhaps people won't be able to have a competency program of skill in that area at the moment, but the reality is that actually they will need to know that for a future engineering career. So absolutely, we're working across multi-sector areas at the moment, and we're absorbing information from all of these areas of work.
And I suppose that highlights the importance of this engagement piece, right? So if you want this to be as robust as possible, then you need to have as much participation as possible from the different organizations and sectors. So no, that's great. And going back to the quick question on the situations, and this is just for my own personal interest, but how many work situations do you think you have produced, or how many do you think you'd envision coming up with?
Oh, wow. How long's a piece of string, I think, is the answer to that in some senses. I think given the scope and depth and breadth of our sector and industry, and also the emerging technologies, then actually we're probably very unsure about how many work situations we will be able to create. And in fact, Skills Development Scotland have given us a bit of a brief that we may not be creating just one apprenticeship standard here. We may be creating more than one apprenticeship standard, simply because of the number of work situations and the depth and the breadth and the scope that we're trying to deliver here. I think what's really important, though, just to emphasise it, when Ellie, in terms of Ellie's presentation earlier on, we put up a list of scope areas that were in scope, and I think it's really important for people to understand is that actually, whilst they're in scope in phase one and we're creating and gathering evidence from all of these areas of work, there may be a small number of them actually that simply the specialist knowledge and technical need within these particular oh, excuse me, my phone has gone off in the middle. There may be some need, for example, for them to be removed from scope at the end of phase one. So we just want people to understand that not all those in scope actually in this phase may be carried forward at this stage of the process.
Perfect. And as there's a link question there for you and Ellie, Robert. Is from Derek Cairns, and the question is, would I be correct to assume that the work you're doing on frameworks and the standard aligns or complements in some way to the work SDS is doing via Terry Dillon?
Yes, in fact, actually, we're working very closely with Terry's team in terms of this project. This project is Skills Development Scotland, and Terry's team have given us the lead on this development piece of work. So actually, we're working very closely with Terry and Alan Ingalls and a whole series of other Skills Development Scotland colleagues. And if you look at our slides in the project process, we're following the new programme of work as set out by Skills Development Scotland around apprenticeship development work. So very closely indeed in terms of colleagues at Skills Development Scotland.
Excellent. So I don't see any more questions coming through the chat. So I'll give, unless anybody wants to unmute themselves and ask a question, we'll give them a couple of seconds to maybe shout out. Derek Cairns just raised his hands. Derek, can you unmute yourself now?
I think I'll need to do that for him. Just 1 second.
Thanks, Laura.
I've just done it. We should be able to do it.
Oh, that's you, Derek.
Yeah, sorry.
Thanks, Colin.
I'll ask a question at these things, and it's a pure, really simple, non-engineering layman's question to probably everyone. Is the world of engineering more complex now than it ever was? So sort of a challenge around about the framework standards with the breadth of them, given the wider definitions of engineering as more occupations become more complex, or is it not? Is it almost maybe becoming easier to sort of map across where things have commonalities, so it could therefore be the opposite? Open question from a layman.
So who would like to answer that question? Any volunteers from the panel just to jump in?
I think from our position at Ingenuity, we've certainly taken a position where I think we've always believed there are more common engineering skills than not. And I was reflecting on just a recent communique that came to us around and I think I mentioned this earlier, around actually replacing or repairing components, for example. Our belief is, for example, that the repair and replacement of components could be electrical, they could be mechanical, they could be composites, and they could be in a manufacturing plant, they could be in a piece of agricultural machinery, they could be some other type of environment. So we believe there are more common skills in engineering, perhaps, than people lead us to believe. And so I think that's one aspect. I think what we're also seeing, though, and what shouldn't be lost on us, there is a number of significant new emerging technologies that we need to understand and we need to consider. So whilst there are many common engineering skills across the broad scope of engineering, I think we're also beginning to see very specific emerging technologies, and we need to be confident that we can also incorporate them into the skills programs and educational programs that we're creating for the future.
Thank you very much, Robert. Colin, do you have an answer for that one?
Yeah, I think the fundamentals are always there. The first principles of engineering will always be there. So the fundamental knowledge is always there. It's something that Talis as a business we have identified and saying that the fundamental bits change, but what we're starting to bring in is a common framework for all of our early careers people to go through, where we've got the fundamental knowledge that every engineer must know. I'll use that term loosely, but then we've got a whole load of building blocks and separate modules that we develop internally that then give that dynamic sort of response that we have to have, where, you know, we've got to be able to be flexible for whether it's our AI side of things, if it's a cyber security part of the business, is it the satellites that we're putting into space, or is it the periscopes and optronics masts we're putting thousands of feet under the water, and the technology we're building there. So yeah, in some terms there are aspects are more simple, and then it's got more complex than it ever has been before. But when you look at what AI can provide, and if you work with machines, then it can simplify things as well. So It's a very good question by Derek. It's understandable. I know where he's coming from, and I think he knows that it's not going to be a layman's answer. But yeah, it's a really good question. Some aspects are simple, some aspects have become far more complicated than what we could probably comprehend.
Well, what I find fascinating now, I have a 13-year-old daughter who's starting to think about her future prospects, and I compare her experience to my experience just now. And if you go to the SDS website and you look at my world of work, when I was young, it was you could be a mechanical engineer, an electrical engineer, or it was very, very limited. And now you can go in and there's hundreds of different options for all of these things. And I think it's a combination of complexity, but also transparency. It's not it's a lot of grace in between. And I think that just we have more opportunity to really find the work that we want to do. But yeah, that at the fundamental level, the principles will be the same. And we work with companies even talking about these digital transformation experiences. If they don't have some of the foundation, the common solid blocks, then it makes the journey a bit more difficult. But no, that's thanks for the question, Derek. That was really, really good. So there we go. My world whirls. No worries, Derek. So thank you very much for the presenters once again. I think we're coming to the end of the session, and we would like to thank the presenters for taking the time, for sharing their experiences. We'll make sure that we circulate all of the slides as we mentioned, and we'll share the link for the YouTube video when it's available. But if there's no more questions, we're happy to just close the session at this stage. So thank you, Colin, Robert, and Ellie for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
I'll just close the meeting and stop the recording.